Stephanie Alexander is a national icon, an internationally renowned chef, best-selling writer, and the inspirational founder of a national kitchen garden scheme for school kids. She's also the final arbiter of kitchen disputes in homes all over Australia. For 3 decades, our disagreements about how to store tomatoes and when to take the sponge out of the oven have been resolved by asking, what does Stephanie say? As the author of Australia's most famous cookbook, The Cook's Companion, she's taught us everything we need to know about cooking and a whole lot more. I'm Conrad Marshall, and from the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, welcome to Good Weekend Talks, featuring weekly in-depth conversations with fascinating people. Alexander joins us ahead of the launch of the 30th anniversary edition of The Cook's Companion for a discussion about writing, eating, and air fryers. Today's episode is hosted by Good Weekend senior writer Amanda Hooton.
Hi, Stephanie. It's fantastic to have you here today. Thanks for coming.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm always happy to talk about myself.
It's fantastic. It's what we like to hear. So I'm sure some, and perhaps many of our listeners, will know you as the owner and chef of Stephanie's Restaurant in Melbourne, one of the most famous restaurants in Australia's culinary history, which you ran for 21 years until 1997. But I think not just some or many, but every listener will know you as the author of The Cook's Companion, the 1,000-plus page cooking Bible that sold over 500,000 copies since its publication in 1996 and has really sort of transformed the way Australians think about, prepare, and indeed actually experience cooking and food. So take us back to your original motivation for The Cook's Companion. What prompted you to write it in the first place?
It's a long story, Amanda. I think it actually really does go back to my own childhood and the way that I had this really unusual and privileged upbringing to be raised by a woman, a mother, who loved cooking. And she loved cooking because she saw it as a way of getting into other people's personalities. She really enjoyed difference. She hadn't been able to travel excepting once to Japan in her youth. So this was her way of finding out about the foods of the world. And as one of 4 children, I was just so, well, I hate the word blessed, but I was so blessed to be offered really interesting food every day as part of our family meal. And so that as children, we just accepted that food was always going to be something interesting and that our mother would probably make a little, not exactly a speech, but she would say something about what it was when it was put down on the table. And we just grew up knowing that food was interesting. Food represented a lot of things. It certainly represented comfort and good tastes and so on. But it was more than that. It was a way of experiencing time together. And from both my parents, it was a way of bringing people around a table and having great times together at the table. And that was so much a part of my childhood. But I was living in a small country town at the time. And it wasn't until I got to university where I first found myself in a community of young women of my age that I started to really grasp how different this background was to almost everybody that I knew or was meeting. And they told me that, their food that they had experienced growing up was wholesome, fresh, and very dull and extremely repetitive. And so when we were residents in a university college, I used to make speeches practically every night until I drove everybody mad. I mean, the food was cooked at 4:00 in the afternoon, put in a hot box, and then these young women who rather fancied themselves as being the elite, would come in at 6:00 and eat this food, dried out, stringy roast potatoes cooked 3 hours before. And the kids, they would all eat it.
Without complaint.
That was the amazing thing. And I used to say, these peas are inedible, or this. And so people say, oh, shut up, Stephanie. So I got to know very early on that my experience was different to practically everybody of my own age. And then when I was running a restaurant, where I was, my passion for food was really allowed to run freely, and I had apprentices, about 2 apprentices every year, and I would find that these lovely young people, and they were lovely young people, many of them really had the most the vaguest idea about how things grow. You know, they didn't even understand about the fact that a plant flowers before it fruits. And so you'd say, well, it's not ready for the plums yet. You can see that the little
still in
lumps
blossom.
are still on the So there was a big gap between what I just knew instinctively because I'd been shown and what these young people who purported to be fascinated by food knew.
Yes.
And then years roll by and we have these preoccupation in the wider community about why it is that so many people are overweight.
Yes.
And the people kept on making learned speeches in newspapers and magazines about the obesity problem. And I was very busy working in a restaurant, so I would read it and be annoyed but do nothing because I was too busy to do anything at the time. But I just knew that you will never change behaviour by frightening people and by just telling them that what they're doing is bad and that they're really bad people.
Yeah.
And they need to snap out of it or nothing will change. And to me, that was just such a dreadful message. And I knew that what was stopping a lot of people, I'd look at my own friends who by now are in the same age as I am, they've grown up, they've married, they've got children, and they still don't feel relaxed cooking. And it just gradually bore into me until it became really an obsession that what was holding these people back, and I assumed the general community was much the same, was anxiety, that they were unsure what to do with things. Should I peel it? Should it go in the fridge? How long will this last? If I cook it today, will it be rotten tomorrow? This sort of thing.
Yes.
Really, really basic lack of understanding or lack of interest in their ingredients.
And things that never appear in a regular cookbook either.
Well, they
Those
don't
sort of
really.
extra details.
And so I felt that what was needed was something which I thought was going to be a small paperback.
I know, incredible.
Well, I got it wrong.
I'm sure many authors feel that, but it was a really big change.
But I just felt that they needed basic information so that if you were curious about an apple, you could look up apple and you would find answers to things that would put you out of your concern and lead you to say, oh, well, I can make buttered apple or I can make an apple tart. Why don't I try doing this, that and the other?
Yes.
But it had to be done with a positive tone and you had to never talk down to people and always encourage, always encourage. So that was really the beginning.
You said at the time that, when this idea was sort of percolating in your brain, you were incredibly busy. You were still running Stephanie's. And indeed, the original edition of the book came out in 1996 and Stephanie's didn't close, I think, till the following year. And again, as you say, you had this idea of a small paperback and you ended up with this 1,000-page magnum opus that we sort of still have here before us. You obviously had no idea what you were taking on. Did it just develop sort of as you went and there was no option?
It was also, I might add, before the days of really sophisticated computers. It was done on whatever, I can't even remember what floppy disks are, except I know they were very much a part of my life.
Yes.
And at the end of every day's work, I would print out. And so I had this pile of paper that just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And Julie, who was the publisher at Penguin at the time.
Julie Gibbs.
Gibbs.
Yes.
And she was a good friend of mine. And so she knew what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And she watched, probably with horror, as the pile of paper grew.
Growing and growing.
And she says that at a certain point before I'd finished A, she felt she needed to go and talk to Bob Sessions, who was head of Penguin at the time. And Bob said to her, tell her to cut it.
Oh, my goodness. Before you'd even finished A.
Yeah. And Julie said, I can't. It's too good. So I will forever be in her debt for that. So she fought that battle for me. And the proof is in the pudding. And it was much bigger than anyone thought it was going to be, including me.
Yeah.
And in fact, the size of it was frightening.
Yeah.
And I did have many times when I thought, I'm never going to finish this. And that was a sort of a really bad thought.
Yes.
And Julie was always there to sort of buoy me up. And
yes.
And on one occasion when I said I'm stuck in the letter C, there happened to be more entries in the letter C than any other letter in the alphabet.
I see.
But I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
I just thought, I'm never going to get finished
through
with
this.
C.
Yes.
Here's kumquat now. And Julie said to me, well, why don't you move on to M or something?
Or X.
And the librarian in me couldn't possibly do that. I mean, the alphabet was sacred. So I just had to keep ploughing on until one magic day I'd finished.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even imagine how that must have felt.
4 years. It took 4 years to write the first one. That includes a lot of time editing with Caroline Pizzi.
Okay.
Because we had to work together to get a design. I mean, I know Sandy Cull did the actual design and it's brilliant.
Yes.
But we had to work out continuity. It had to be each ingredient had to be treated in the same way,
yes.
so that people knew that the friendly voice and the trusted that could be trusted
yes.
would be the same for every entry.
Yes, I understand. I mean, just to pick up on that point you made, that, you know, it was much, much bigger than everyone was expecting, including the publishers, and also took a lot of risks really in a publishing sense, didn't it? Because it's enormous. It is
no food on plates.
Exactly, no food on plates anywhere in the thing. It's entirely unlike a cookbook in many ways. It's like an encyclopedia or a reference book or something.
Yeah.
And so, was anyone expecting the sort of publishing phenomenon that it became?
No, including me.
It's extraordinary. So you thought it would be it would be a sort of thing for people who are as interested as you, or how did you
maybe I
perceive
saw it as perhaps an alternative, a slightly jazzier alternative to the CWA cookbook.
Yes, right. But even CWA
something that would be trusted.
Yeah.
Was very important to me, that the tone and the feeling in the book was one of trust.
Yeah.
And, here I am, hold my hand and I will take you there sort of thing.
Yes.
Nothing's...
You can relax.
Yeah, you can relax. There's easy things, there's harder things.
Yeah. But it's not a mystery,
No.
Of
course, I suppose I learnt all that practically with my apprentices, because they although they didn't know when they started, they certainly knew by the time they left me and went out into the big world.
So tell me about the success. I think it was very successful very quickly, wasn't it?
It was. And what's more, the first print run, and I can no longer remember, but it was either 8,000 or 10,000 copies were printed. The booksellers were a bit puzzled because it was to sell at $75, which was a huge sum at the time. No pictures. So they would say, I'll order 2 copies, right? And this is because it came out in October.
Wow. So you can't even, there's no question of a display in the bookshop or anything.
What happened was, of course, by the time the book appeared, there was already a bit of a word of mouth.
I see.
And then I've spoken to the young men who run one of Melbourne's best independent shops, the Avenue bookstores, and they said all their good customers wanted it for Christmas, but the print run had sold out.
Wow, okay.
So they took trolleys to Woolworths, who were discounting, and filled their trolley with discounted copies and probably made a $5 profit on the sale, but at least their good customers had a good Christmas.
Yes, indeed.
And I still can get excited by that fact. I mean, that for an author, to feel that your book has just been blown along by positive comments from real people.
Yes.
Not reviews.
Not a fantastic marketing campaign.
No. I mean, I did do a marketing campaign. I can't remember much about it. But I know I did it. But it was essentially word of mouth. So that's a really lovely thing to think.
There's no greater compliment, really.
I don't think so. And even today, I still have most days, if I go out in the real world, somebody will stop me somewhere and say how much they love the book. I mean, even on my worst days when I've sunk into deep despair.
That's very comforting, isn't it?
It is very comforting.
Oh, that's a wonderful. And it's true. I mean, I was speaking to my mum just before I got on the phone with you, and she said it was very familiar because I've read that other people say this, but she actually said, well, it's all, if you're not sure what to do, well, you can go and look in that book. And my mum's a very accomplished cook, but it's the final arbiter. If you've got two opposing views or you're just not sure, I think people feel exactly as you wanted them to, that sense of they can stop being anxious, they can relax, they can just enjoy it. Tell me about how this, runaway success changed your life.
Oh, look, my whole life is based on the success. My whole life now would not have been possible without the Cook's Companion. I was able to make the decision to leave Stephanie's restaurant, which had really done for me as much as it could, and including exhausting me.
Yes.
And I felt it was time that this very personal restaurant should go. And, of course, I had something like 20 members of staff who all needed to be paid out. Everybody got every cent that they were entitled to.
Which is not always the case.
Which
when
is not
restaurants
always the
close
case. Thanks to the Cook's Companion. I was able to buy my beautiful apartment on the banks of the Yarra because of the Cook's Companion. I was able to devote my time and energy to creating the Kitchen Garden Foundation because I didn't have to earn a living, because the royalties kept rolling in. Now, that happened for several years. It's calmed down now. We hope it starts again, but we don't. But we don't know. It can't be exaggerated, the impact that this has had on and I say to my daughters, you should be thanking the Cook's Companion every day.
So you've come back to the Cook's Companion for this revised edition. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's 200 pages longer. You've looked at a whole lot of new equipment. You've really sounds like I think the revisions themselves have taken 2 years. Is it?
Yes.
You've been working on it. So I mean, why mess with the winning formula? Why did you feel like you wanted to go back?
Well, it became more and more obvious to me that things have changed. We have got issues of food security. We've got the bee population collapsing. We've got concerns about aquaculture, despite the fact that half the fish in the world that is eaten comes from fish farming, but we've got anxieties about it. There's there's not only alarmist things, but I mean, there are things that I think food lovers need to know so they can think about it. I've cut out the use of the words plastic film. Now, that was quite a big thing because everywhere I've said, cover it with plastic, well, that's all gone. Just cover it. And I've given options for the sorts of things that you can use.
Okay.
So I think good cooks are becoming much more aware of the environment as such. I've said to somebody the other day, I don't want to be seen as a food activist, but I want to be seen as a food alerter. Mm-hmm. I want people to know that there are issues that they should be thinking about.
Yes.
I can't necessarily solve them, but I can alert them to the issue, microplastics and so on. Apart from all of that, there are 70 new recipes.
Wow.
And it also gives me the opportunity, which I love, I hope my public love it too, of introducing the work of other people.
Yes.
And I'm always scrupulous about acknowledging where something comes from.
And that goes right back to the first edition. Yeah. I know from my own version, you're always talking about people who
And it's a way of introducing new cooks to work that maybe they haven't come across.
Yeah.
And I've told, a lovely story about Joan Campbell. Do you remember Joan Campbell?
I don't think I do.
She was the
Joan
food
Campbell.
editor of Vogue Entertaining for a long time. She died a few years ago.
Okay.
But she was an absolute marvellous personality in the food world. And so I brought in one of her recipes. I don't know, but it's called Yum Yum Cake.
That doesn't sound very Vogue. Yum Yum Cake is not nearly sophisticated enough
lovely
for
cake
Vogue.
Made without any eggs or some other amazing thing. Anyway, it's beautiful, and it did give me the opportunity of reminding people of what a great pioneer person this woman was.
And that's a lovely thing about a book like this, which is in some senses a reference book, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that you give people the opportunity, you can give them a little window that they then may want to go and look up more detail about, or, it's one of those opportunities for enrichment that you don't get in many sort of. You certainly don't get in
and it also has given me the
recipe.
opportunity of adding my own sort of, where I've been enriched by a travel experience, or when I encountered something for the first time. Sometimes there's a story there, sometimes there isn't. But sometimes I've allowed those little stories to creep in. I also went through every line of this book, every single line, to make sure that there was nothing I wanted to change in the existing recipes. And of course there was. Sometimes a cake tin. I'd make a cake a third another time, and I'd think, yeah, it's still very well saying 26 centimetre, but I really think 24 would do, that sort of thing.
I did want to ask, have you taken any recipes out?
Yeah, a few.
Yeah.
There was a few that I thought were either too esoteric. I think that was mainly why, because they were just a bit mad.
While we're in this nitty-gritty of recipes and what's in and what's out and all of the new things that you've added, so you mentioned plastic film, and actually that's a wonderfully relevant detail.
Really.
Tell listeners, what are the alternatives?
Well, I think if you say cover something, that to some extent that is okay. And it depends what it is. Like yesterday I was crumbing a piece of John Dory for my dinner, and I had all these beautiful crumbs that I'd made, and I'd put some za'atar in it just to make it a little bit more exotic for myself. After all, who's more important? And I had those crumbs left on a plate, and I thought, I can't be bothered putting those in a jar or something. So I just put it in the fridge with a piece of silicone over the top. You can it's just
like a silicone.
It's like a tea
sheet
towel, but it's green and it's not plastic, and it's washable. And so I've got quite a few of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there are times that I make sure that I do use a sealed container.
Yeah.
And then I try to make sure it's not just takeaway. The takeaway plastic containers, I think I sometimes have to smack myself about because I've still got some.
Yeah. And they're very hard to throw away.
They are very hard to throw away.
Mm.
I have a friend who came back from a year of living somewhere or other, and where she was professionally packed to come home, and she was horrified to discover that she'd packed an entire suitcase of takeaway plastic containers. And sometimes you can buy plastic covers that are a bit like old shower caps.
Oh, yes. I've seen those.
Put over a bowl.
I suppose there's all the beeswax wraps. Are they
the beeswax
okay?
wraps are okay if it's just something you want to just cover up to stop flies falling in it. It's not going to preserve
not really a seal,
anything.
is it? No, not.
But I use those.
Seal.
So
lots of alternatives.
Cover.
Yeah.
And then you use your brains. What have I got that I can use?
Let me ask the other burning question that I have, which is about air fryers.
I've bought a small air fryer because I felt I just needed to find out about it, and I use it almost exclusively for heating purchased chips.
Chips.
Now, I know that's perhaps a
frozen
bad...
chips.
Yeah, which I don't do very often, but when I do it, it's such a good way of doing it, and it's quick. My sister, who lives on a pretty tight budget, and she and her husband, she says she uses it for every single thing.
Goodness,
she hardly ever turns her oven on these days.
Okay.
And so I tried to cook a rack of lamb in it, and it cooked it beautifully, but of course it had no char.
Yeah.
And so that mattered to me, but there's no question that it cooked it very well, and it cooked it very quickly.
Okay.
So it's clearly got a use where I can imagine a studio apartment if you're an international student or something and you've got a PowerPoint, but you can't do any other real cooking. That could be very good. And but I would not say that I'm an expert in air fryer cooking.
No, that's okay. I am interested to know when was the last. One of the wonderful things I've always felt about the Cook's Companion is how clearly you're able to express the continual joy that eating and cooking give you. And it did make me think, I wonder when the last meal Stephanie cooked that she thought was a real success was? Was it last night, maybe?
Well, last night was just me, and I thought it was nice.
Well, you're probably a pretty tough judge, I would have thought. So,
But I think perhaps a better story is that I went to a test tasting of a meal I have to work with a hotel about. We went along to taste the dishes that were going to be shown for the evening, and I wasn't happy with one of them, and it was my recipe, so it wasn't me saying there's something wrong with the recipe. It was just didn't sort of excite me at all when I saw it cooked. And when it's going to be cooked for 100 people, you know that if it doesn't excite you when it's for one. So I went home and I made it from beginning to end. I changed the pancake recipe. I cooked the leeks. I made the parsley and garlic sauce. And I put it all together again, and I thought, now that's what it should look like. And so then I sent that all into the chef, who was very nice. It was utterly grateful for that.
Oh, fantastic.
So I will get very pig-headed about little points.
Yeah. I think that that's completely fair enough. I mean, you've got to have an element of perfectionism about these things. And it's also worth, as you often have also said, is that, even for someone at your level and with your experience, not every meal is a success. So, we don't have to expect that of ourselves. We're only human. But I have heard a rumour about some baps.
Oh. Yes, I don't know what went wrong then.
Just to lower the tone for a moment.
Well, I was
ended up
intrigued,
in the compost.
Firstly, because I think the idea of a bap is so lovely. It's sort of an old English term, which is really meant to be like a soft scone, I think. Well, mine were like things you could drop on your foot and possibly break your toe. And I suppose I do have a thing that when something's really bad, I can't be bothered cooking it again. I mean, if something's just, I think it's got potential, I'll go back and I'll look at the recipe again and say, well, perhaps it's got too much liquid or too much flour, and I'll have another go. And I will at that point also look at other people who I consider to be authorities to see if there's something that's obviously amiss. But with the case of those baps, they were so bad, I just thought, quickly get rid of it so I don't have to think about them again. Don't think about the butter. Happened. Don't think about anything. Just get rid of them.
And are BAPs dead to you now?
Absolutely.
No going back to the BAP. Oh, my goodness. Okay. You've described in your own writing this lovely phrase, the intimacy of a meal table, and what a wonderful place that is. And it's a sort of partly because it's this wonderful way to interact with others. And I completely agree with that. That's true of my own experience. But I also think that, preparing food for others is often quite a stressful experience. So what is it for you that makes preparing meals for others such a joyful thing?
I think it can still be a bit stressful. I would say that I'm very skilled at preparation. Always been a list maker. In the restaurant days, I was always a list. Yeah, absolutely. And if I know that tomorrow afternoon I've got to have somebody for dinner and I've got to go out today, I will do what I can a day ahead. So preparation,
even just for one person, that's interesting. You've got one guest coming. You'll if there's something.
Well, maybe if one guest coming, I probably wouldn't. But if I've got 3 or 4 people for dinner, I've got 3 or 4 people coming actually next Thursday for lunch.
Okay,
including Maggie Beer and husband and.
Oh, okay.
And
no pressure there then.
No, none whatsoever. But I'm going to be out on and I'm in Sydney today and at Powerhouse tomorrow. So I am a bit pressed for time. So that has meant that I've had to sort of think in advance, what can I do that I can do half before I get to, and I'm good at that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Preparation,
on the day.
thinking ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about just cooking for oneself? Whatever M.K. Fisher, the beautiful food writer who was forever talking about going to restaurants on her own or having some perfect little meal for one that she would, prepare.
I think she talks too much myself.
whatever she may say about cooking for one, I often find it quite hard to get motivated for just one person. You know, if I'm just cooking for myself.
What would you have?
It's a struggle. Well, I would often end up, you know, doctoring up some 2-minute noodles or something.
Oh,
I think.
I'd never do that, but I might have scrambled eggs.
Yeah. And would you make an effort with those scrambled eggs? Would you do a little bit
I always make an effort with scrambled eggs, but they're done in 3 minutes.
Yeah, true enough.
And I've always got a bit of cheese. I've always got eggs. I've usually also got other things, and I love leftovers.
Yes.
I had people for dinner a week or so ago, and I made this scallop dish where it had this topping of very finely chopped onion, red peppers, celery, something else, and it was this very fine dice that was beautifully coloured, and I cooked it with a bit of saffron and a tiny bit of squirt of tomato paste, and just so I had this really slurpy sauce.
Yeah.
And I bought scallops on the half shell, so all I had to do was throw them in the oven and then put this lovely thing on the top, and everybody thought I was very clever. Well, I wasn't, but it did have some of this sauce left over. So I did have some fish the next night or the night after, and so once I'd cooked the fish, I put the rest of the sauce on the top.
Delicious.
And I love doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't like having bits in the fridge that if they don't have a purpose, they have to go.
You have to get rid of them.
Or if I think they have done their dash.
Yes, exactly. Do you always eat at the table, or do you?
Always.
Uh-huh.
Always set the table, have a glass of wine, a glass of water. I must admit that I'm usually watching the news.
But you're at the table,
I'm at the
not
table.
on the couch. I think that's a quantitative difference.
Yeah.
Well, whether we're cooking for 1 or 100, I think I speak for many people, and I certainly speak for myself, that, you know, you have made the whole process over 3 decades so much simpler and clearer, more relaxing and infinitely more enjoyable. So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I hope that's the case. It can be great fun.
To enjoy more in-depth journalism from the latest edition of Good Weekend, visit us at theage.com.au or smh.com.au. This episode was produced by Conrad Marshall and edited by Tim Mumbury, with technical assistance from Josh Towers and Taylor Dent. Our executive producer is Tammy Mills. Lisa Muxworthy and Tom McKendrick oversee our podcasts, and Melissa Stevens is the editor of Good Weekend. If you enjoyed this episode, follow our podcast and leave us a review on Apple or Spotify, and thanks for listening.